The SciShow team has several hot girls with stomach issues, and they're in doctors' offices and on the internet like the rest of us trying to solve those problems. One solution that keeps coming up is the low FODMAP diet. Apparently, you can't have yogurt, apple juice, mushrooms, and split peas, among other things, which sounds like the most random assortment of food and drink possible. I challenge you to come up with a more disjointed list of foods. And here's where a lot of us run into a roadblock. To follow a low FODMAP diet, you have to know what the heck a FODMAP is. So this video lays it all on the kitchen table. I don't know how old you are, but most likely when you were born, there was no such thing as a FODMAP. Well, high FODMAP foods existed, but nobody called them that. Back then, if you had irritable bowel syndrome or IBS, you might avoid foods like cabbage, beans, and onions, gassy foods. But it wasn't until 2005 that two doctors in the Department of Gastroenterology of a hospital in Australia gave those foods a name: high FODMAP. It's an acronym for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. You may still be wondering what the heck a FODMAP is, but the acronym can be broken down to become a bit more digestible. A lot of it describes sugars. Certain fruits and vegetables are chock full of simple sugars called monosaccharides, like fructose. These monosaccharides can also bond together to make more complex sugars. A pair of them is called a disaccharide, like lactose found in dairy products. And up to 10 sugars linked together is an oligosaccharide. That's the kind of complex carbohydrate you're probably familiar with from wheat grains and beans. So all of those foods are high FODMAP, plus sugar alcohols or polyols, which are broken down sugar byproducts. These are commonly used as artificial sweeteners because their structure can make them hard for your body to digest, creating a lower calorie effect. These molecules are all fermentable, which means the bacteria in your gut can quickly break them down, often into a gas. The gas released from fermentation can make you, gassy, which is why your stomach sometimes feels like an overfilled balloon when you eat high FODMAP foods. But if you're sensitive to FODMAPs, you can also end up with more severe symptoms, like diarrhea. That side effect comes from how hard it is to get FODMAPs through your body. Most nutrients get absorbed in the small intestine, but FODMAPs don't absorb well. That's because they're too big to slip through the intestinal lining, which means a lot of them go on to get fermented in your colon. The imbalance of molecules creates osmotic pressure, where water gets pulled into your gut, and then you have a lot of liquid in your gut that makes its way out in the form of runny poop. This might sound all too familiar if you have the chronic inflammatory GI disorder Crohn's disease. One of the hallmarks of Crohn's is something called leaky gut. It's an imbalance of nutrients and water being absorbed in your intestines that the Australian doctors hypothesized was related to fermenting FODMAPs. So you might try and adjust your diet to prevent this from happening all the time. Maybe instead of wheat-based bread or pasta, you stick with rice or go with gluten-free options. Swap out onions for chives in your salads, snack on some carrots rather than cauliflower, eat more egg and fish for protein, and avoid beans. Basically, you're experimenting with a low FODMAP diet. You can cut out high FODMAP foods from your diet entirely, which might be worth it if you're constantly dealing with severe Crohn's symptoms. But for people who aren't diagnosed with Crohn's disease and instead have some other form of IBS or GI issue, the low FODMAP orange juice might not be worth the squeeze, especially because completely eliminating large portions of major food groups can cause other problems. Such a strict diet could result in poor nutrition, an imbalance of the bacteria that lives in your gut, or the potential to trigger eating disorders. And that's just when it's possible to limit yourself to only certain foods, which is not an option for everyone. So the low FODMAP diet has evolved since it was first served up. Instead of completely eliminating a whole bunch of foods, it's now a phased approach to discover your personal trigger foods to avoid for the long term. But before we get to that, all science needs funding, so please excuse this quick ad.
Introducing the new Brilliant. Brilliant is an online learning platform that offers guided courses ranging from introduction to functions to algorithmic thinking, so anyone from 5th graders to post-grad can learn something new. And now, Brilliant is entering its personal tutor era. Private tutors are far better than one teacher for 30 students, but they're expensive and hard to fit into your schedule, and those are barriers Brilliant is trying to lower. They're working to bring a world-class math and coding tutor to every home with their new visual interactive tutor. Click the link below or scan the QR code to get started with Brilliant's tutor for free. You can upgrade to premium to unlock all courses. And right now, SciShow viewers can save 20% off an annual subscription at brilliant.org/SciShow.
With the guidance of a doctor or nutritionist, you go through 3 phases. Phase 1, restrict food to only low FODMAP foods. This is essentially the elimination. It won't be fun to go on such a strict diet for 4 to 6 weeks, but it might just be worth it to determine if you are sensitive to FODMAPs. If you find that your symptoms improve, then you move on to phase 2. Systematically reintroducing different types of high FODMAP foods. Basically, you're testing which foods are full of the FODMAPs that cause you to get those rumbly tummy symptoms. Still, not fun, since you're essentially trying to give yourself symptoms. In this phase, you're playing toilet roulette with high FODMAP foods until you make it to phase 3, where you get to personalize your diet. Now that you know which FODMAP foods you can tolerate and which you can't, you can avoid the trigger foods and are free to eat everything else again. The goal is to get you to a place where you feel comfortable managing it for the long haul. That whole process is, I'll just say it, a pain in the butt. So the future of low FODMAP diets might include a few bonus phases, making it a 5-phase approach that actually might simplify the whole thing. Before the elimination phase, experts propose a phase 0, poop screening. They'll run tests on your stool sample that can predict if you're likely to respond at all to this diet, because you don't want to go through the gauntlet if FODMAPs aren't really your issue. And if they are, then you'd run through the 3 phases and maybe even end on a 4th phase that would help your gut adapt so that you don't have to be super restricted for the rest of your life. Here I'm talking about treatments like targeted enzyme therapies. Right now, researchers are still ironing out phases and treatments, but some of them are pretty exciting. So we're quickly moving into the future of FODMAPs. But since we're not there yet, some people still need a less aggressive approach than the 3-phase gauntlet. You might not be able to stick to a restrictive low FODMAP diet because you're a young kid who won't eat much of anything, or you're underweight or pregnant. In those cases, you might be tempted by the newer FODMAP gentle or FODMAP light approach, which is a bit less strict. The idea is to only restrict a few very high FODMAP foods at first and expand your restrictions if needed. The pros to this gentle approach are that you can get more food in you. The cons are that we don't really know if that food is going to keep causing the same problems you started off with. Right now, data is mixed as to whether this approach actually does much for you. So if you can, the full-on version is still gold standard. While we're still working out a less restrictive low FODMAP approach, we have made tons of progress since FODMAPs were first very badly named. Today, there are even tests that can help diagnose you and to quantify how your systems change after starting a low FODMAP diet. Like, they can measure the amount of hydrogen in your breath to see how much fermenting your large intestine has been up to after you've eaten a high FODMAP trigger food. And professionals might be able to see how sensitive you are to certain FODMAPs using MRIs to measure the water and gas in your gut. So we're making the low FODMAP life more personalized to exactly what's bothering your bowels. And we're learning that it goes beyond Crohn's and IBS. The diet might help symptoms with gluten-related disorders, abdominal pain disorders, and even endometriosis. In one study, 60% of endometriosis patients had less abdominal pain and bloating after changing to a low FODMAP diet. Another clinical trial suggested that a low FODMAP diet might even keep babies from crying. Not that they were feeding babies the low FODMAP foods, but when breastfeeding parents ate low FODMAP foods, they said their babies with colic were less fussy. In just the few decades that it's been around, research suggests the low FODMAP diet is a successful treatment option for all sorts of issues. You might not have to spend your whole life putting up with those crappy symptoms after all, but you will spend your time explaining what FODMAPs are to everyone who hasn't seen this video.